What antidote do nudibranchia have in order to feed off the coral and most toxic sponges? Is it possible that animals are familiar with the pharmaceutical powers of certain substances? Macaws ingest kaolin after eating poisonous berries, the same way that we take antacids for indigestion. Chemical substances structure and mark the guidelines of some of the most incredible behavioral patterns of living beings. When medicine and pharmacology began, they took advantage of essential substances extracted from plants in order to elaborate potions and treatments. Now, new active principles are even extracted from some animals. Cobra poison derivatives are being studied in order to fight against mad cow disease. In this episode, we're going to travel through a world overflowing with poisonous animals, immune species, and hallucinatory and hallucinogenic substances. The chemical war has begun. Toxins and poisons hidden in the most intimate cellular composition are the secret weapons that give a competitive advantage, which is also invisible, to its proprietor. For example, anything can hide under tropical soils. For many species, coming out onto the surface is a risk that should only be taken when it is strictly necessary. Many poisonous animals roam in this very special habitat, and here we have discovered an incredible way of using toxins. Tarantulas are feared because of their painful bite. They use it to hunt. But this tarantula is not looking for food. It's a male looking for a female. Maybe that's why the rodent has nothing to fear. And yet, he's too curious, and curiosity leads to trouble. This beautiful spider has developed an effective dissuasive system to repel an attack when it's hit from behind. It's a clever system that prevents having to kill, or even worse, waste poison. The urticarious hairs that project when he rubs his abdomen teach a hot lesson to the daring animal that will pay for his boldness in a terrible way. But the first substances that worked as poison were waste materials from bacteria. Our intense relationship with these microorganisms has sometimes been tragic. They're responsible for the most deaths in the history of humanity. This is Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria that causes botulism. They're the producers of the most deadly toxin that exists. 1 gram of its poison is enough to kill 10,000 people. Like them, many other living beings, in their attempt to proliferate, have designed and made their own chemical arsenal. Our fight against them is spying, more delicately known as microbiology. Up until a few years ago, we didn't even know the importance of fire or soap in order to fight against them. Today, we control them to the point of using botulin bacteria as a muscular relaxant in therapeutic programs. It's even used in anti-aging creams. Many antibiotics, saline solutions, and vaccines invented by man are nothing more than imitations of what other living beings naturally produce. For example, many fungi generate natural antibiotics to prevent their surroundings from proliferating bacteria. The most renowned kind forms part of the Penicillium genus. We consider penicillin to be a technological product, and although it's so important to us, it's nothing more than the defense mechanism that fungi secrete to prevent bacteria from eating their food. Toxins were originally created with all probability to protect against the voracity of predators. And so it's logical that static forms of life, and especially those of the plant kingdom, the base of the entire food chain, are the best pharmaceutical experts on the planet. Their immobility is practical, but needs to be compensated for in certain ways. Plants have fabricated alkaloids, tannins, phenols, terpenes, and saponins, everything to limit the number of species that can devour them. Although they may appear to be defenseless, they aren't. The guapinol is a tree that has developed a specific poisonous toxin for the fungus that leafcutter ants feed on. Protection is evident. If this colony of ants decided to collect the leaves of this tree, they would only manage to kill the fungus, lose their harvest, and die of hunger. Howling monkeys seem to be perfectly familiar with the poisonous secrets that are hidden in the leaves of trees. An area was delimited for a field study. There were 1,699 trees, 149 of them belonging to the blackwood species. Man gets a strong but natural rat killer from its leaves. However, it was observed that the monkeys fed on 3 of these dangerous trees, but only these 3. When these leaves were analyzed, it was proven that they were free of alkaloids and cardiac glycoside that cause toxicity. Once again, an animal has been able to dodge plant toxins. Undoubtedly, this knowledge would have represented a high price in the lives of young hunting monkeys. Through these behavioral patterns, however, we've been able to witness one of the most important factors in the development of primate intelligence. Great memory capacity is needed, as well as a highly developed language, in order to distinguish which plants can be consumed and when. Who knows, maybe this is something else that primates should thank poison for. Of these and many other forms, the phytophagous insects, or plant eaters, have had to adapt their customs and digestive systems in order to feed. Plants followed the saying, "If you can't beat 'em, join 'em." They opted to associate themselves with some of their predators, and in exchange for food, they obtained new possibilities of dispersion. However, some animal species knew how to gain even more. They learned how to incorporate plant chemical compounds in their organisms. Now they're dangerous too. No one will eat this helicon until it changes its diet. Man cannot accumulate poison in his tissue in the same way, but knows how to copy the strategy. We have discovered the potential of preserving food that some species offer us. Better yet, spices. What we know by the name of spices are plants that have developed a potent chemical for their self-protection. And given their bactericidal and fungicidal character, man has learned to use them as food preservatives. Blended with food, spices prevent fungi, bacteria, or insects from eating our groceries. We discovered much later, after being accustomed to the flavor, that aside from preventing diarrhea, they had a fragrance and exquisite bouquet, and in small doses, they weren't dangerous. But let it be stated that the intense flavors and aromas of pepper, bay leaf, parsley, and mustard correspond to a clear warning. They can be deadly. Avoid eating too much. Bacteria and protozoa develop in a liquid medium, which is where they also live best. This is where the danger of water comes from. The problem arises when you are very thirsty, and the only water available is warm and stagnant. In other words, ideal conditions to offer your stomach a lot of undesired life forms. This is another time when we should turn to the plant pharmacy and prevent the famous Montezuma's revenge, diarrhea. We were advised to eat certain berries if we had to drink here. And of course, if we judged the bactericidal potential of the berries in relation to how bitter they were, we could have saved the expense of the modern water purifying pills. Among all the animal families distinguished by taxonomy, we will find species that use alchemy to defend themselves. Although among mammals, birds, and reptiles, poison is something very unusual. The duck-billed platypus is one of these rarities. The spurs on their back feet are connected to a poisonous gland. The same spurs are found in continental neighbors, the echidnas, but these primitive animals have only a trace of what they should. Today, they seem to have lost their effectiveness. Maybe the predator that they use their poison against has been wiped out. Stepping down a step on the lifeline, one step right before reptiles, we'll find a class of vertebrates that are experts in the functions and use of poison. Amphibians. To start off, we should highlight that all species within this animal class store harmful substances in the glands of their skin for those that want to taste them. This young hunter isn't aware of it yet, but without a doubt, after his first close encounter, he'll never forget the experience. Let's go back to the idea of poison as a defensive weapon. An arrowhead frog's weapon is so strong that they have practically no predators. The arrowhead frog eats poisonous insects, which they use in some way to make their own toxin, batrachotoxin, the strongest poison created by any animal. The recipe comes from the frogs, but the raw material belongs to the insects. In effect, we will find the most lethally poisonous and complex formulas among anthropoids. They even use hydrocyanic gas transmitters that kill through inhalation. However, when someone talks about a sting, the first thing that comes to mind are wasps. It's true that some have very strong venom, and due to their gregarious character, an attack by them can be fatal. But man has been able to learn the most about wasps through hunting wasps. Curiously, they're herbivores. They only hunt for their larvae, and they have invented a toxin that only paralyzes their prey. They don't want to kill them. They only want to keep them alive and immobile, so that one day their offspring will have fresh meat. An authentic, paralyzing anesthetic. In order to really talk about poisonous insects in this episode, really poisonous that is, we've chosen the ant. Ants are descendants of wasps, and although during their evolutionary process most of them have lost their sting, some ants hide a terrible weapon in their abdomen. This is a bullet ant, a gigantic ant measuring about 3 centimeters in length. It hunts insects and even small frogs. It lives in the Latin American forests, and due to its feeding habits, it's always looking for food on its own. Its non-lethal sting is the most painful one that exists. They say that it hurts more than a gunshot wound. Coincidentally, we were filming this specimen when we watched how the ant began to move in a very strange way. When we looked closer, we understood why. It was being threatened by death. And its very powerful poison wouldn't help him at all. The antidote that these tiny hunchback flies were using was made to order for the ant. and the jaws of the bullet ants are too big and weigh too much as to represent any danger. In the end, various flies achieve their objective, to leave an egg on top of the monstrous beast, which is 100 times bigger than they are. Their larvae are guaranteed a lot of food. The first animal forms were born in the sea and were almost as immobile as plants. Corals and sponges could not get away from a predator when they were being threatened. Their strategy coincided with that of the plant kingdom, to incorporate toxins in their organism so that they would be unpleasant to taste and even dangerous. And just as happened with plants, some animals learned to use the venom of the corals. The garbage crab places on top of itself materials that he finds scattered in his environment in order to camouflage himself. But this one has taken it one step further. He has covered himself with Parazoanthus, an extremely urticarious coral that not only gives him an imitative factor, but a powerful defense mechanism in case he runs into a predator. He simply covered himself with this coral by chance, as if it were any other thing. However, the delicateness with which he removed each coral from its moorings seems to reveal the intention to keep them alive on his shell. Nudibranchs are another kind of animal that takes advantage of corals and sponges. These mollusks, which lack a shell, have also discovered the possibilities offered by chemistry. This striking snail has specialized its diet in blue sponges. It finds certain active and very powerful substances that give it a deadly sting. It can afford the luxury of being white, of being unmistakable within its species, because there are no carnivores able to eat it without dying. There is another way to take advantage of poison without eating it. The anemones have such an efficient defense system that no one has ever found a vaccine to counteract its toxins and to live calmly among its tentacles. When a clownfish chooses an anemone, he can't enter it just like that. He would die due to the tens of thousands of micro stings received, and later he would be devoured. This process of immune adaptation is very delicate and somewhat painful. The question is allowing itself to be stung little by little in order to discover the exact composition of the mucus that covers every tentacle of the anemone. This mucus is what prevents the arms from shooting its harpoons between them when they come into contact. The clownfish copy the molecular structure of this protective shield and then reproduce it over their scales. Chemically disguised, they're not identified as a foreign body, and the invertebrate doesn't attack them. However, the fish takes care of its home, and with great care, which is why they can't be considered an ungrateful guest. The clownfish's protection against predators is impregnable. It's better than an electric fence. Even the best hunters can't beat him. But the poison of sea anemones is conceived for something else. We've insisted on the defensive concept of toxins. And yet, with the passing of time, the mere fact of having them has allowed evolution to discover a new use: the hunt. The truth is, there are very few animals that use toxins for hunting. This is because just possessing poison isn't enough. A system to inject it is also required. Alongside the Armiquillas from Cuba and Haiti, shrews are the only animals that use toxins for hunting. No other of the 4,070 mammalian species do so. But evolution is not always progressive, and sometimes it seems to jump along. A casual bite by one of these small animals would be a little dangerous for man, but it could kill a cat or a dog. Today, it's essentially a predator. A shrew that weighs barely 4 or 5 grams has to confront insects that are even bigger than it is. Its nutritional needs are enormous. It has to cover a metabolism more appropriate of a hummingbird than of a mammal. More than 5 hours without food would cause it to die of starvation. That's why its venom contributes to killing its prey without burning large amounts of energy. Each hunt needs to be very worthwhile. The other black stain on her record is due to her supposed cannibal conduct with respect to male spiders. Her sinister name is because of them, although this is just another exaggeration. The chaotic web that they build does not seem to make any geometric sense. Their specialty is poison. They don't need anything else. And obviously, it's enough for them. We've left snakes for the end, since they best represent this kind of hunter. And yet the percentage of snakes that kill their prey by injecting them with poison is less than 10%. For the most part, snakes are constrictors. However, there are some that are extremely dangerous for man, and thousands of mortal accidents occur annually. Much research has been carried out in order to achieve each antidote. And it's been discovered that snake venom originally had a predigestive function. Almost 75% of its composition is made up of enzymes. And it's so strong that the neurotoxin and hemotoxin effects became its prime function. The prey die due to respiratory failure. Thanks to the knowledge acquired from research, today snake venoms are the source of new medicines for many illnesses. Cardiopathy, thrombosis, hypertension, Parkinson's disease, polio, rheumatism, epilepsy, arthritis, botulism, leishmanosis, cancer. The truth is, we shouldn't dislike snakes so much. As we've seen, toxins have different effects on different species. What may kill in some cases cures in others. What may be lethal for some is the perfect diet for others. It's difficult for nature to reveal its secrets, but it's quite clear that it holds stories that are a trip for those who want to watch without using hallucinogens.